please share this with your friends on Facebook or on YouTube or on your pads, cell phones, PCs, computers, anywhere you can. And this is another episode. This is a special episode, emergency episode of the neveragain.ca broadcast with Mayor Halevi Weinstein. We'll be starting in about 3 minutes. Let's just run through some intro here while everybody's getting ready to get on the screen and to share it. And our guests are queuing in shortly. Let's skip that a little further. Let's go to there. Moving right along. This is the Never Again Live podcast series with Mayor Halevi Weinstein. You can find all of our past episodes at israelnow.ca. Like us, join us, share in the conversation. For those of you with us on our last scheduled broadcast, we were talking about the rallies that basically were happening all over the world in support of terrorism, calling them martyrs, murderers. They changed the word murderer to martyr. So this is a special report bringing you up to date on these events. Just a few who are with us for the first time this evening. Our host is Mayor Halevi Weinstein, who's an observant Jew, a proud Zionist, served in the Israeli Defense Force. He used to spend his early years dedicated to finding Nazi war criminals, some of who have been deported due to his research. Today, his main focus and the main focus of IsraelNow.ca is the radical Islamic influence, left-wing anti-Semitism, and the plague of BDS that's invading our institutions of higher learning. We have some guests with us this evening who've been with us before. Iran will be with us a little later. But Ron East is the unapologetic Jerusalem-born Zionist community leader, grassroots activist, and publisher of the JCA, which is Canada's leading source for regional, national, and global pro-Jewish news. And also with us, we have our special guest, Ryan Belrose, who met us from Alberta and a passionate Zionist who understands the common issues affecting the indigenous Metis tribes as well as the Jews of Israel. It's always a pleasure to have Ryan with us. And quietly hiding out in the corner for comic relief is Dr. B. That's me. If you do want to join our chat, I'll be answering your comments, so send them on in. Those of you with us last week spoke about the Glory to Our Martyrs rallies all over the world. Basically, they changed the word murderer to martyr, and they're taking these known criminal murderers who've killed not only Jews, but Israelis, as well as the rockets backfiring children in Gaza. They're honoring them all over the world. It's an embarrassment. The key figure who was assassinated finally was the Fatah terrorist. There's no doubt about it. He's killed people, he's killed Jews, he's done bombings, shootings, and he's being honored in New York, in Canada. They're saying they'll carry his legacy. His legacy is that of a murderous thug. And then in New York.
We don't want no Tuesday. We want all of it. We want all of it. Eric Adams supports the murder of Palestinian children. Eric Adams.
They hide the fact that 9 Palestinian children were killed by Islamic Jihad rockets misfiring and blowing up in Gaza. And how can you negotiate with people who say they don't want the existence of Israel? I think that basically the problem boils down to this. On the one side, there are those who want to kill all the Jews. On the other side, there are the Jews who don't want to die. It's hard to come to a peace agreement with these parameters. So today's episode, getting to the heart of the matter, is BDS and Islamic Jihad. They're promoting a global assault on Jews, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world. If we look back over the last few months, we can look back to March, April, May, 5 killed by Palestinian gunmen. Armed Palestinian gunmen kills 11 murdered in 2 weeks, 3 stabbed in Tel Aviv, an Israeli car ramming and stabbing, and 4 more killed in a shopping center attack. These groups, Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah, and the BDS group itself is now looking to unquestionably kill Jews. That's their goal. And they're indiscriminate. When they drop missiles in Israel, they forget that 25% of Israelis are Christians and Muslims, but they just call them martyrs. Murderers killing martyrs. We had a guest on the show fairly recently, Brigadier General Amir Avivi, and he made some very interesting comments a couple of days ago, and I'll read them to you. But he urges the Israeli government and defense establishment to recalibrate its course and define new goals. We can sit idly by while jihadist thugs, we can't sit idly by, stockpile arsenals larger than those of many European countries at the doorstep of Israel, adding range, adding payloads. We can't let that happen. And he goes on to say, Hamas and other terrorist organizations mustn't be allowed to stockpile rockets, and Israel should eliminate them before the enemy uses them. Israel should set out to eliminate the military capabilities possessed by terror organizations in Gaza and elsewhere. And recalling the Babylonian Talmud, where it says specifically, basically, what the Brigadier General just said. That if someone gets up and they plan to kill you, kill them first. Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran. We can't wait. We know what they're saying. When Hitler said he was going to kill all the Jews, nobody believed him. So that's the shooting, stabbing going on in Israel. But then we know there was a stabbing attack in Canada. A Lebanese immigrant who was an employee of a kosher butcher meatpacking plant in Montreal decided randomly to grab a pair of scissors and find an Orthodox Jewish man sitting, relaxing, and stab him several times in his face, in his neck, in his eye, in an unprovoked attack. And this is just being glorified at these rallies in Toronto, New York, Montreal. Then, of course, the mother of the terrorist who was killed, first she's laughing and smiling at the funeral. Then she goes on to say the following.
ماذا تقولي للناس اللي بيقولوا ان الشعب الفلسطيني تعب وان الشعب الفلسطيني عايز الامن والامان وكفايه حروب ويعني ونروح
So she's being asked what she thinks about the Palestinians who want peace.
مساحه السلام.
Here's her response.
كفايه مقاومه. ايه رايك في الكلام ده؟
لا 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 ولا يمكن يكون هذا كلام شعب فلسطيني، الشعب الفلسطيني ولا يمكن يحكي هيك حكي. احنا في رباط الى يوم الدين، وان شاء الله تعالى فلسطين ولاده. ما استشهد ابراهيم، معك استشهد ابراهيم، بس في 100 مليون فلسطيني اسمه ابراهيم، وابراهيم النابلسي. اليوم وحده ولدت سمت ابنها ابراهيم النابلسي، مش ابراهيم لحاله، ابراهيم النابلسي. الحمد لله رب العالمين. احنا ما بنكل ولا بنمل عن الجهاد، واقصانا راجع ومسرانا راجع بامر الله، ما هو بامرنا. ان شاء الله اذا ابراهيم استشهد في 100,000 ابراهيم ان شاء الله بيكملوا طريقه للجهاد. ان شاء الله ان شاء الله الله يرضى عليه وصيته، واكيد بحبوه ورايحين ينفذوا وصيته ان شاء الله. هدول الشعب كذابين.
And here's her clinch. Her clincher statement is that Jews are the worst liars and hypocrites.
على مدى التاريخ. وبنفس الوقت أنا ابني الحمد لله شهيد. هن بيفكروا إنهم قتلوه، بس هو حي عند الله.
He's alive and well.
رب العالمين. بل أحياء.
She's not mentioning those virgins.
فرحين
72 of them. Nobody guarantees those 72 virgins are women.
ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من بعدهم. ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون.
We're going to wrap things up here and bring Mayor on the screen momentarily, and after that we'll have our guests. So together we can fight anti-Semitism. Please join us at israelnow.ca. Join us, comment, watch us, and Mayor, turning the floor over to you and our guests.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Gary. We're living interesting times right now. There are literally rallies taking place throughout the world in major cities. Pro-Islamic Jihad rallies. They're very clear what they say. That woman that we showed, the mother of that terrorist from Shechem, who was killed by the IDF, who has so much Jewish blood on his hands. They praise that mother. They look up to her as an example. They're not ashamed. They share her message. They speak openly about her at their rallies. They speak openly about emulating her son, Ibrahim. He was responsible for many terrorist attacks. He was responsible also for when Jews are visiting Joseph's tomb to pray there, killing Jews there while they're praying. That's what kind of animal he is. Just last night, there was a terrorist attack in Jews on a bus, a crowded bus, just leaving the Kotel, the Western Wall. An Arab, Palestinian, opened fire. There are Jews in serious condition. And what's the reaction with the those who call themselves Palestinians? Certainly in parts of East Jerusalem, there were celebrations going on. They're in ecstasy. They're calling for more. I can't understand why the Israeli government allows people who celebrate this, allow them to come into Israel proper to work, to give work permits to people from Gaza even. I can't understand that. This particular terrorist, this was unique, and this seems to be probably the new direction how things are going to go. There was a manhunt. The IDF, the police, other security forces, they were looking everywhere for him. Eventually, the terrorist turned himself in. Why would he turn himself in? He doesn't want to get involved in a firefight with the IDF, with the police. He knows that if he goes to jail, an Israeli jail, he'll get fed well, he'll receive an education, he'll be used as a bargaining chip by Hamas, and maybe he'll go free. And not only that, but his family will be rewarded from the Palestinian Authority. Palestinian Authority has a representative in Canada. The representative in Canada spreads on her social media anti-Semitic garbage, incitement. And on a video clip, and we have it, on a video clip, she says she was born in exile and that the Jews were all colonizers. We have no historical roots, according to her, to the land of Israel. But she could be born wherever she wants to be born, outside of the land, anywhere. And for that matter, Arabs could claim to be Palestinian, could be born in Egypt, Morocco, Yemen, Lebanon, the United States, etc., etc. They erase Jewish history. We're going to bring our guest on, but let me just read one quick thing. I've been posting on social media about these rallies of incitement going on. And I posted on Instagram a picture of one of the protesters who held a sign. And the sign said, "Stop the Judaification of Jerusalem, London, the United States, Russia, the Ukraine. Stop the Jews." And they're chanting at these rallies. Zionists go home. Jews go home. What do you mean? Go to Europe. Go to the gas chambers. So when I posted about that poster, it was in London, England. A BDS leader in Toronto made a comment. Listen to the comment. And then we'll start discussing with our guests. We got great guys. We have Ryan Belrose with us, Ron East with us. We're going to get into it. So this guy goes on. Jews lived in Medina? Never. Never Mecca. You talk about apartheid because Jews are not allowed in Medina. Apartheid is treating two groups of citizens in one land differently. That is not the case in Medina. So you are wrong there also. Banning a group of people to live in your land is not apartheid. We know what apartheid is, and all major human rights organizations have clearly said where it's being practiced. Jews were kicked out of Medina because even your historian that the Jews in Medina violated a treaty in Muhammad's time. He adds, peace be upon him. Yeah. Sure. Judaizing Jerusalem is new. Jews were protected by Muslims after the Crusaders were defeated. You speak lies. Don't bullshit a bullshitter. I have proved you wrong. 1, Jews lived in Medina, not Mecca. Apartheid doesn't exist in Medina because only Muslims live there, so it's not possible. 3, I gotta keep a straight face. Jews were protected by Muslims after the Crusaders were defeated. All 3 religions lived peacefully prior to 1947.
Absolutely.
Only when Jews wanted to steal land did things get ugly. Let me stay in your house and then tell you it was mine originally 300 years ago. My ancestors and you need to leave. You know,
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
I gotta say about this guy, at least he has a little bit of honesty, not using the Zionists. So we're clear. He talks about the Jews. Give credit where credit is due.
You know, we kicked the Jews out of Medina, therefore there is no apartheid because we kicked you out. So by kicking you out, we avoided the whole apartheid thing. So maybe that's the same thing in Israel. Need to kick them out, then there'll be no apartheid. Use the same philosophy. What nonsense. What nonsense.
Well, I like how it started off that there were no Jews, but when there were Jews, then we kicked them out. Come on, guys, at least get your freaking story straight.
And we kicked them out because they misbehaved. You know, they didn't behave well, so we kicked them out.
But there were never Jews there. But then when they were there, we kicked them out.
Never. They were, but they weren't.
Never.
You know, it's funny because, like, I wrote about this. They want so badly to be the underdog, to be the person that's persecuted, to be the poor, pitiful Palestinians that are being oppressed by the big bad Jews. But at the same time, they want to be the big guy. They want to be the powerful ones. And it's like, you see it by the way that they talk. Like, you know, like everything is all about how, oh, you know, this is our land and you stole it from us. But then in the very next breath, they'll say stuff like, but we're going to kick all of you out and, you know, push you all into the sea. Like this Lath guy that we're going to talk about too, you know, like this guy that was talking about how Jews are bags of feces. One of his posts, and they actually they brought it up in one of his posts. He comes right out and says, "There's no place for Jews in Israel. Like we're going to kick them all out." And I'm thinking to myself, okay, but like in order to kick them out, don't you actually have to have the ability to kick them out? Like, doesn't that mean that you think you're the more powerful one? Like, no, buddy, you don't get to be the victim and then tell people, I'm the victim, but, you know, just so you know, when I'm more powerful than you, I'm going to treat you far worse than you treated me, but I'm still the poor, pitiful victim. But just so you know, like, you never kicked all of us out, but we're going to kick all of you out. Like,
and it's only because you did something. And we're going to kick you out because you did something wrong. You went against something. So it's not our fault we're going to kick you out. It's your fault we're going to kick you out. So even then,
why do you feel so bad?
We're still the victims. We're still the people that are, you know, being oppressed. It's lunacy. And this guy we're going to talk about, I mean, he's a perfect candidate to, you know, help people understand anti-racism. I mean, what better person to, you know, go around teaching about anti-racism than a guy that spews that kind of hate. But this is becoming normal for Canada. I mean, it's becoming normal for just day-to-day, you know, event. These people are coming in and they're seen as some kind of anti-racist. In the meantime, their anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is going unchecked. Where is Mr. Cutler? I don't understand. What is he supposed to be, the watchdog? What is he doing? I want to know, where is he? What is he doing? Who's watching
here's the
Mr.
thing.
Cutler?
I don't,
No
yeah,
kidding.
I think the biggest problem.
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go right
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Ryan.
Mayor. It's all good.
No, 100%.
I was going to say,
vacuum
part of the
with
problem.
leadership. Yep.
Yeah,
There's a
there's
total vacuum.
that's kind of the issue, right? Don't get me wrong. I actually like Dr. Kotler. I think he's a good man.
Me
But
too,
I
me
think
too.
the problem is, though, when you're a government employee, you get paid by the government. You pretty much there's a limit to what you can do. It's kind of like you and I have talked about this. Part of the problem with advocacy right now is that some of the organizations that claim to be doing advocacy also try to do government relations. Those are two things that are fundamentally opposed, because the whole point of advocacy is to make people uncomfortable so that they effect change and make the changes you want to see. The whole point of government relations is to make the government like you so that they do what you want.
Right.
You can't do the two things, because by its nature, advocacy is going to make the government uncomfortable, because that's the point of it, is to make them change things. When you want to make somebody be your friend, you don't want to make them uncomfortable. You want them to like you. That's why, these are different goals. Too many of our, especially in the Jewish community, too many of the leaders, they just want to be invited to the prime minister's Hanukkah party. They don't really give a shit if they actually get anything changed. How many years now, Mayor? How many years? And I'm not saying this to call anybody out, but I think you guys will get where I'm going with this. How many years now have we heard from the mayor of Toronto and from the premier of Ontario that it's unacceptable to have things like Al-Quds Day with the open anti-Semitic chants and the literal calls for genocide? How many years now in a row have we heard this is just unacceptable and we can't let this happen anymore?
Yeah,
I think it's what, 6 years?
I
6 years in a row.
I testified at City Hall more than that, more than 6 years. I testified there.
Yeah. So
a few times, and the mayor has given his word that he would shut it down. He's never done anything like that. Never shut it down. He never stopped a marching. And he gives them a police
100%.
escort too.
Yep,
But
police
hey,
escort. They remember they cut off a street. They sectioned off a street for them.
University Avenue.
That cost the city money. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I saw a question here from one of the audience members, Mayor.
Yep.
This is a good one. Why do regular people in Western countries all of a sudden support terrorists? It literally makes no sense. It's not all of a sudden, though. This is the thing. I don't think most people even realize that the European governments used to make deals with the Palestinians that as long as the Palestinians didn't mess with them, they could do whatever they wanted. But people don't realize this. The European governments basically sold everybody else out because they were like, okay, terrorists, you can do all your terrorist nonsense as long as you don't do it in our country. So we're seeing it coming home to roost now.
On that point, on that point, here's something interesting to consider. Israel's going to be selling gas to Europe, and I think there's going to be a major change going on in Europe when it happens, which could be this winter or a little bit longer than that. But once the gas starts flowing to Europe from Israel, I think we're going to see a reversal. They're not going to be so friendly to the BDS. They're going to think more about keeping their own homes warm at night. So it's very, very interesting times that we're living in. But what we will see is a lot more violence from these BDS groups. Last year, they attacked
100%.
Jews in restaurants and just all over the place. And these BDS groups have the full support of major Islamic organizations. And, we exposed the Muslim Association of Canada, the various speakers that they brought in that promote this type of incitement. So when Hezbollah threatens Israel, when Israel's exploring the Mediterranean for gas and getting their gas fields ready to send the gas. Hezbollah is threatening Israel. They're going to blow up the gas rigs and so on and so forth. And their support base is BDS groups. So we should see, we probably will see, unfortunately, a lot more violence happening United States and Canada, we're going to see it. I predict that. And do we have the leadership here with the backbone to properly not just
No, we
call
don't.
it out, properly prepare the Jewish community for this? No, at best, what they'll do, they'll send out
No.
a tweet.
They'll send out a
Yep.
tweet. They'll put out some words out there. They'll put out a nice little communique to their donors, letting them know how outraged they are, you know, and how they've contacted all their contacts at the police or the political party levels or whatever the
Yep.
case might be. And we're watching and we're doing, but they're never really, you know, they never really do anything at all. And when we're talking about, you know, BDS attacks only on the rise, let's look at what just happened in Montreal the other day. I mean, this man comes, gets an employment at a kosher butcher, you know, from Lebanon, and on his break he comes out, looks around, you know, the door to make sure nobody's there, takes out his scissors, and then just attacks an innocent Jewish man who works at the same establishment, sitting there probably on his break, you know. And this is not even major news anywhere. It's not even a big deal anywhere. You know, I don't see our community, you know, joining and rallying and walking together and uniting and demanding action. That is the difference between what our community and their community. You know, when 16 Palestinians are murdered by Islamic jihadist rockets that fall short in Gaza, what the Palestinian, pro-Palestinian groups do is they gather together and they rally
Blame
downtown and elsewhere. Exactly. And they jump well ahead of it. Then they blame Israel. And then they tell you, hey, does it make sense to you that we would throw rockets on our own people? Hey, that's stupid. Those people. And there's nobody out there to say, wait a second, here are the facts. Here's the real things. Here's what's happened. Nobody from our community, nobody from anywhere. Yeah. The fact that CJ sends me an email to let me know, what good does it do? You send it to me. Who else are you affecting out there? Where are you calling for action? Where are you monitoring what's going on? It's people, again, I always say it, like Ryan, yourself, and me that work 24/7, you know, to do this. For example, this Mona lady who we'll talk about in a short while, this wonderful, you know, Palestinian representative, an anti-Semite, you know, is coming here to Winnipeg for a Palestinian Foodorama in another week. Yeah. I'm telling you, nobody in our community leadership knows about it. No, none of them have contacted any of the political leadership in Winnipeg or the province. Let them know, hey, you don't want to meet with this woman. Here's what she says about Jews. Be very careful. We're monitoring. We're watching. It's an election year. You know, nobody's doing any of that. She's going to come into Winnipeg, pictures taken, politicians will stand with her, you know,
smiling
selfies. And that's not because the Palestinians are doing something wrong. It's because we're failing as a community to put out the alert out there about it. Then we've got 5-kilometer runs and walks for Palestine all over Canada. You know, where's our community to say we need to do something in return for Israel? So you do something in Toronto, but where's the leadership elsewhere? Where's the entire country saying we need to do something to make sure that our community stays strong? We're silent way too often.
That's it. Listen, there was a rally, there was a protest.
Let me butt in for a rare quick comment, something I've been thinking about just while we're talking. Is what's interesting is I think that we need to bring attention to the fact there's actually been a paradigm shift. Forever, BDS has been promoting free to Palestinians, a two-state solution. You know, Israel is bad, this and that. No, but I'm serious. What's changed is for the first time, BDS is glorifying murderers. They're martyrs. They're having rallies where they're actually celebrating lives. This is new. This isn't from 5 years ago. And we know that Islamic Jihad has done this, Hamas has done this, but BDS, not only BDS, tragically, progressive Jewish groups are memorializing people who are killing Jews.
But started
new. That's something that I don't recall.
But Dr. B, that started a long time ago. If not now, we're having regular, you know, services every time. Vigils. Every time a Palestinian terrorist was killed, they would go out there and say Kaddish over them. How disturbing is that? We have videos of them doing that, you know, and having their pictures out there. This is not new. What's new is becoming mainstream. It's becoming regular.
Exactly.
The only thing that's shocking you is that Europe has finally come to North America. That's the only thing that's shocking you. We thought that we were somehow immune to it, but we're not immune to it. It's just showing up here in our door, and now we're.
Why is this not on the news? Here, why is this the fact that among the children killed, that we know, we have video footage, we have satellite footage, we have proof that these 9 children were killed by Islamic Jihad rockets? Why is this not in front of the New York Times, CNN, even Fox News isn't showing this?
Because
I'll give you a hint, Doc. I'll give you a hint because it doesn't rhyme with Jews.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, exactly.
exactly.
That's
I mean,
it's the truth.
know,
I mean, look,
actually-
yeah.
We actually have some footage. There was a pro-terrorist yesterday in Toronto. We have some footage of that. We certainly have people who are monitoring, and we need people in the city all over the place.
But you see
to
that, Mayor,
monitor
you
this.
have people, Mayor, you see this, you have people who are monitoring this, right? I mean, how ridiculous is this? You know, instead of CJ and
where's
all the
CJ?
other ones
Right.
being the one monitoring.
Yeah,
We have people monitoring this.
big
Okay,
orgs,
yeah.
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 It's
Go
insane.
ahead, Mayor, sorry.
It
and then
really is.
Then
Like,
they'll send us a message. They'll send us a message.
Yeah.
Can you please give us the footage?
yeah.
So,
When we get the
hey,
footage so
Mayor-
we can share it.
Yeah.
We got this footage from one of our covert operatives at the scene who secretly recorded it on a very high-tech Samsung camera. I'm going to play some footage. Mayor, it's about 20 minutes long. So I'll play it, and then, we'll fast forward because I don't think anybody can tolerate the 20 minutes. After the first 2-3 minutes, I'll cut halfway through it. But this isn't in Gaza. This isn't in some
Toronto.
European city. This is
Colonization of our land and life and the forced expulsion of our people. A slow motion genocide that the Zionist regime has been attempting to carry out for 74 years.
74 years. I mean, I don't get, if it's genocide for 74 years, how is the population of Palestinians skyrocketed? Certainly, if we're doing genocide, we're not very good at it.
Resistance is justified when people are occupied. Louder. Resistance is justified when people are occupied. Viva, viva Palestina!
Now, where did it become a Spanish quest? Viva, viva, I mean, correct me, but isn't that
You gotta rhyme. You gotta
the
rhyme.
battle cry of Latin America?
It has to rhyme. Otherwise,
I
doesn't
got
make
it.
sense.
Viva, viva Intifada! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Intifada!
Viva, viva, intifada. You're an idiot. What's the motto?
Louder, let them hear you here, let them hear you in Ottawa, let them hear you in Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Interrogating it like it's a fact. And now I'm confused. Am I the only one that's questioning the logic of shoot first, apologize for hitting the wrong person later? Am I the only one that's wondering whatever happened to innocent before proven guilty? Or are those concepts only applicable to civilized people?
What is she talking about? I mean, what? I don't get it.
Doc, I don't want to
I
watch
see them and
this.
demand the Canadian government.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
I couldn't get to it.
You know,
Not good ones anyway.
you know what I.
And their family!
Now, this guy is great. I first thought maybe he was like a secret FBI, somebody spying on it. This guy out of nowhere stands up in the crowd, grabs a microphone. I mean, so just you have to hear him.
For the people who didn't have a chance to watch the interview with Ibrahim and Nabulsi's mother, please try to Google it and see how the Palestinian spirit, symbolized by the parents of the martyrs and the wounded,
At the request of our other guests on the show, I think we get the point. Okay, guys?
Yeah,
Back to you.
it's always the same. Look, it's always the same stuff. Literally, I could write a freaking playbook. I can tell you everything they're gonna say. They say the same thing every time. Free, free Palestine, viva, viva Palestina. Who gives a shit? You know what? I'm sick and tired of their nonsense.
Here's my
They're gonna
question.
talk about genocide, then they'll bring up ethnic cleansing, then they'll bring up how mean the Zionists are. It's always the same nonsense.
No, 100%. But when they name the terrorists, and they want to emulate that terrorist, and they make it clear.
Yeah,
that's something we want to get across.
Here's my.
Oh yeah, no, don't get me wrong. We have to record it. We have to record it, and we have to make sure we have it. But I'm just saying, at like you like all three of us. I guarantee you too, Doc. I guarantee all of us have been to so many of these events. It's the exact same thing. Like literally, it's almost by rote. It's by playbook. That's why they make everything rhyme, because they're stupid. It's the only way they can
it's
remember it.
it's all on a phone. If you ever watch them, they all have it on the phone, and they've got it written down, and they go one by one through the lines. It's all prepared. My bigger question to you is, why do they shout it so loud? What's the point? Like, it's like when my kids argue with me, they think if they're going to be louder than me, it makes it right, and then they want to scream so loud, and then they get themselves into some kind of a trance, because at the end they're all like, woo! They work themselves up into such a fury. And that's what happens, Mayor, by the way, in like Al-Quds days, for example, on May 15th in Toronto, that they almost slaughtered the Jews there, is because they got themselves into a frenzy, frothed themselves, at the mouth, and then let them loose, let them go kill the Jews. That's what the Israelis are about. The Israelis are about to get all these people so enraged, so hopefully one of them finds a Jew on the subway or on the street or something, and they do something to take out that, that rage that they have about the injustice that's happening. By the way, a few years ago, they carried babies. Remember those fake babies that they made with the blood? And they had it, now they're carrying what seems like garbage bags with flags of, Palestinian flags on them to symbolize the dead, Palestinian martyrs, they're so-called, It's such a sad and pathetic attempt at trying to get any kind of point across. And like some of the people are already saying, in the chat, people are getting sick and tired of it. Torontonians are getting sick and tired of it. People, it's not like it used to be. It's not let's see what's going on there. Now it's like, look at those crazies again.
Roll their eyes,
doing this. And it's always the
they're
same
getting
people.
smaller actually now. They're not getting.
And look at the crowd. And look at the crowd. It's the same people, young people under the age of 30. You've got nothing better to do on a Friday or a Saturday night. So they go downtown, they rally together, then they go to some falafel place and eat their falafel and talk about how they're, liberating Palestine by going into downtown, Toronto and screaming and yelling for an hour. In the meantime, Israel is at the highest, importing, in its history, 40 billion in the first 5 months of the year. So as they're screaming in Toronto, against Israel, the bank in Israel is just going cha-ching, 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 because the world is realizing who the superpower is. So keep on screaming and yelling. You're not doing anything. You're just showing, who you are.
I just came back just about a month ago from Israel, and I can tell you it's robust there. It's there's in the major cities, there's so much construction going on. The economy is booming. It's only going to get stronger with these trade deals through the Abraham Accords, and I have no idea even what the economy is going to look like after they start selling the gas to Europe. And it's complete game changer.
Inflation in Israel is just over 4%. I think it's at 4.4%, where the rest of the world we're at 9%, and some places even double digits. The shekel against the dollar and against the European market, is just skyrocketing. It's just showing you the strength of the Israeli economy right now as compared to the rest of the world. It's crazy.
I'm not that happy that the shekel is getting so strong, because when you compare it to Canadian dollars, there, holy smokes!
But it just shows you the strength. It just shows you the strength of the Israeli economy and the strength of the Israeli people, and how they're riding through this.
Yeah, I have to say this though. I think that part of the misnomer, everybody seems to think for some reason that BDS is about impacting Israel. And I've been saying this for almost 10 years. I've never thought that BDS was really about impacting the Israeli economy. I've always thought it's been more about empowering anti-Semites and enabling them to say anti-Semitic things they can then couch in human rights terms, right? Because whenever you read this stuff about BDS, who are they going after, right? When Fearus decided that he was gonna, go show off how brave he was, where did he go? He went to a store called the Taste of Israel, and he went on Shabbat, right? He started harassing buying groceries, and we're supposed to believe that this is like some kind of brave freedom fighter type, right? Like real tough guy going after little old ladies, bubbies and zadies that are going to buy groceries for Shabbat. These people are not freedom fighters. They're not brave. They're cowards. I mean, that's why you attack people like that. I mean, if you want to really be brave, let's talk about the fact that, how many children were killed by Arab missiles that were shot by Arab
16.
terrorists. But they won't say anything about that because they know that some asshole from Hamas would just kill them. They're not going to go protest Hamas because they know Hamas, as evil as they are, they won't put up with someone talking shit about them. They'll just go kill them. But I mean, meanwhile, we're supposed to believe that Israel's so oppressive and terrible that the guy that just did that terror attack in Jerusalem turned himself in to these horrible, oppressive, evil police
Right.
because he didn't want to get shot, and he knows damn well he's going to get 3 hots and a cot. He's going to get a chance to get educated. His family's going to get a bunch of money from the PA.
Yep.
But I mean, you guys are so horribly oppressive that he'd rather be in jail with you than be a martyr and go up to heaven and hang out with Allah for killing all those Jews. And he wasn't even like very good at terrorism because, I mean, it must have been a terrible shot. He shot a pregnant lady. Good job, buddy. You're real brave. And he shot a bunch of other innocent people, but he didn't kill anybody because he was a terrible shot because he's useless. He probably heard. I mean, these are the kind of people that we're dealing with. And meanwhile, Israel, this is what annoys me. And I'm going to be blunt. They need the death penalty.
Go ahead.
You need the death penalty.
Absolutely.
Here's
Here's one
that
more.
are shooting pregnant women.
Here's one more element.
Sorry, go ahead.
To what happened with that bus attack. So they set up a ramp for the bus to allow someone in a wheelchair to come onto the bus. All right. And by doing that, the bus can't take off. So because the driver wanted to leave after the terrorist attack started happening, but they couldn't do it. So the terrorist sees somebody with a wheelchair being put into the bus. That's when he started his attack. That's when he started the attack. That's how savage these people
Real brave, eh?
Disabled, pregnant women.
And then Aliyah Hassan of Firaz al-Najim will go online and say 8 settlers, colonial settlers, shot, making it seem like, he was some kind of a, brave freedom fighter, in a war, and something happened. In the meantime, you're shooting a guy in a wheelchair, a pregnant woman, some Satmar religious, a family of Satmar religious people from the United States. And then you go try to hide. You call your daddy probably. You say, Abba, that's what happened. Your daddy says to you, you better go hand yourself in. And then you jump into a cab with a Jewish bus, with a Jewish cab driver. And you tell him, I want to go to the police to report that somebody beat me up. And he takes you to the police. And then you hand yourself in. It's just, and he's a hero now. They'll name a street after him. There'll be a statue built up somewhere. Yeah, he's a hero. And then, like you said, in about 3 or 4 years, they'll exchange him with Hamas or somebody for something. And then he'll be a hero coming back home. They'll shoot their guns up in the air. You're handing out the candy. Yeah.
Guys,
in the meantime, people are dying.
I got to take a little break right now because somehow the lights went off in the building that I'm in. So just hang on a moment. So carry on.
It's a Zionist conspiracy.
The Zionists.
It must be. It's ridiculous.
You got a point though, Ron. Like this is why I say stuff like Israel needs the death penalty, because Israel has. I don't know if people know this, but according to the law, Israel does have the death penalty. They just never apply it.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at some of the terror attacks and some of the actions that have been taken by these people, like Samir Kuntar, I mean, he smashed a little girl's head on rocks in front of her father. Like, this is an evil human being, and they didn't kill him. I mean, the guy that shot Shalavet Pass. I mean, you shoot a toddler sitting in her stroller. You can't tell me that was an accidental shot. You murdered a toddler. Like, and then people are like, oh, it's because they're oppressed. There's a lot of Native people that could make an argument in Canada that we've been pretty oppressed, and you don't see us murdering children in strollers. You just don't see that.
That's that's what I've always said, that if you want to talk about people who are oppressed, how come in Canada, for example, buses aren't being blown up by First Nations people? How come First Nations people don't carry the same kind of violence and terrorism against the people that First Nations see as that did them harm against colonial white people, Europeans? Why doesn't it happen? Because it's a cultural difference, and there's a systemic cultural difference here. 2 different groups of what that claim to be oppressed. One who was really oppressed, one who pretends that they were oppressed, but come from 2 different cultures. Your culture, the First Nations culture, is not of a culture of honor killings and not valuing the life of your own family, of your own children, that honor is more important, than the breath of life you gave to your daughter or to your son. That doesn't exist that exists in that religion. A religion has no problem killing its own people, its own flesh and blood. Why would it have a problem then going and killing others? Why would it have a problem going and stabbing an old lady or a person in a wheelchair or a pregnant woman and seeing that as some kind of glorified, because it's okay in their own religion to stone themselves, to beat themselves, to kill your sister if you see her walking in the street with another boy because she brought a shame to the family.
But we're not, Ron. We're not allowed to talk about that because that'll make us bigots. I mean, you just saw, you literally just saw on video now, because they showed the attack on Salman Rushdie on video.
Yeah.
And it's funny because people don't want to admit that was literally Islamic pushed. Like there's a fatwa on that guy. Basically,
that was Iranian pushed.
Yeah.
Iranian pushed.
Yeah. And I mean,
the
thing is, nobody wants to
forget. Let me just cut in real quick. That we talk about why the indigenous Canadians, indigenous Americans, we all ourselves, we forget, if anyone has justification to have radicalized, it was a Jew after the Holocaust. And we didn't radicalize. We understood it. We sent our kids to college. My parents, my grandparents who made it out of there just in nick of time. We got jobs, professions. When they talk about Occupy, they talk about us. We talk about occupations. We talk about doctors and lawyers and accountants. So if anybody would be justified psychologically, psychosocially, and geopolitically to radicalize, it's the Jews. And we don't do it. So why did this group of
because it's a cultural difference. I'm trying to explain it. It's a cultural. I'm not being a bigot. I'm not being a racist. I'm not being anti-Islamist. I'm not being anti-Palestinian. I'm not being anything. I'm just saying the truth the way it is. It's a cultural difference. That's why Jews after the Holocaust didn't go on a mass murdering rage across Europe, because that's not in our culture.
Want to hear. But here's the thing: it's not just about the culture; it's also about the family and the values that the people hold. And you want to know how I know that's true? If you look at who the most successful Palestinians are, it's all the ones that left. There's a massive Palestinian community in Chile, and they are very wealthy. They're considered to be in the upper strata of Chilean society. I mean, these are people and they still self-identify for some reason as Palestinians, but they're actually wealthy
and refugees
and successful. Yeah, exactly. And this is part of the problem, though. Like, because now you also have people look at the Hadids. They're in America. I mean, you can't tell me that Bella and Gigi Hadid are Palestinian refugees. These are, they're wealthy, well-to-do Americans.
What is, and that brings us to the whole. That brings us to the whole definition of what is a refugee. But just like genocide is now meaningless, and Holocaust is now meaningless, and Nazi refugee is now meaningless. It's just words that we throw out there that people, the normal person who doesn't really understand, goes, "Ooh, refugee, that should mean something to me." Oh, that word, that should. But what does refugee mean? I mean, how many generations can you be somewhere else and be well off, like you said, and wealthy and good, and still consider yourself a refugee? And here's my question: you want to tell me that somebody who's that wealthy in Chile would come back and live in some shithole, in the Galil High, God forbid, if let's say, they assume that they get the right of return to some old village that doesn't exist? No, who's going to return? What are you talking about? Where are you returning to? I mean, it's such a fallacy. It's so ridiculous. And then to demand of them, of Israel, to allow the right of return to these people who claim not to be 15 or 16 million big, which is now more than Jews. We still haven't caught up to the number of Jews that died, that there were before the Holocaust. Yet some of Palestinians in 74 years, or whatever they want to claim, have jumped from 1 million or 750,000 to 16 million. Jews haven't been able yet to recoup the 6 million that died in the Holocaust, but they were able to 16 timefold themselves. It's ridiculous. It's so funny.
Well, it's funny because they even admit that they're the only people in the world that are generational refugees. That's the United Nations actually comes right out and says that. Like, no other group of people in the history of mankind have been considered to be generational refugees. I mean, that alone says it all to me.
And then they claim here that they're somehow fighting, alongside with the First Nations here to decolonize Canada. I don't see any of them giving up their homes or where they live or their businesses or anything they're doing to help this decolonizing of Canada. So you're sitting in Canada in your comfy home in Toronto or wherever you are, spewing this, we're helping decolonize Canada for the First Nations. You're not doing anything for anybody. You're not doing anything. You're just trying to, again, create another rift or another crack in Canadian society that doesn't need to exist or never existed before this.
Well,
It's,
look, the bottom line is, like, they claim that they're anti-colonialist, but they're only anti-European colonialism. They're okay with Arab colonialism.
look what they're doing in Africa. Look at Africa. Look at it. They're trying to take over Africa. They're colonizing all of Africa. But God forbid
Well, I
you
mean,
say
they
something
colonize
about
the
it.
entire Middle East, Ron. That's the
Yeah.
point. Like, they
Right.
are literally the colonizers in this situation, but we're not allowed to say
God
that.
forbid. God forbid you say that.
Yeah.
You know, like they always claim that the Christian Palestinians are so important to them. Yet when you look at the population of Christian Palestinians in Bethlehem
Yeah.
from
It's a
before, you
fraction.
know, they all nothing, because they're all run away. Do you know where they went? They went to Europe, to
America
Canada,
and
United
Canada.
States. Yeah, to be successful, because you know who they ran away from? Not the Jews. They ran away from the Palestinian Muslims who were harassing them. That's what they ran away from. But God forbid we say that, you know, that's terrible of us to say.
Hey,
Well, that
anybody
brings
who's
us to
watching
what
us in
Laith said,
Toronto,
right?
let me get in real quick. There is a power outage in parts of Toronto. So if any of you all think it's our show or your program, right now, as we speak, there's a power failure in parts of Toronto. Mayor was gone for a little bit, but from the shadows, let's have him come back in and join the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make it a little shorter this show because there is a power. The entire building is blacked out outside. Street lights are out.
I think the Zionists probably did it. They probably control the weather and the power.
Yeah.
And
But
probably from some birds they sent up with dolphins to the satellites, they shut off the power. That's what I heard.
The traffic lights are
Sounds-
working. See,
Sounds complex,
Yeah.
yet reasonable.
yeah. But as we go forward, I see more of these protests happening. I think there's going to be a lot of this going on campuses as well. You'll see Jews being attacked, just like what happened in Montreal. A Muslim worker, just an Orthodox Jewish man, takes a pair of scissors, starts stabbing him in the face and in the neck. And where's the outrage from Islamic organizations too about this? Where is it even reported?
Well, like, look, Mayor, like, when you look at what these people are saying, like, so on Twitter, this is an actual tweet.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm not embellishing it. I'm not adding anything.
Yep.
I have a motto: life is too short for shoes with laces or for entertaining Jewish white supremacists with anything but a bullet to the head.
Yeah.
The Palestinian offer of peace to the Zionists is the same offer Saladin gave to the Crusaders. Accept equality and you can stay unharmed. Loot everything and leave. We will not get in your way. Fight us and you will die. Right? This is Laith Marouf, right?
Yep.
This is the guy that was hired by the Canadian broadcasting organizations to teach anti-racism.
I said
Okay.
a perfect
He
candidate.
also said, all loudmouth bags of human feces, also known as the Jewish white supremacists, right? And just so we're all clear, when they're talking about Jewish white supremacists, they're literally just talking about Jews, Orthodox Jews mostly, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is why, like, it's important that we call this stuff out, because the more that we allow this kind of language to be used, the worse it's going to get. They're not going to suddenly wake up and be less extreme. Every time they get away with talking like that, they get more extreme. So
Absolutely.
that's why, like, you hear Ron, like, sometimes I've had friends actually tell me, like, you and Ron and Mary, you guys always bitch about the same stuff. And I'm like, why do you think that might be? Like, why do you think that we talk about, the fact that people are using certain words to demonize Jews? Why do you think we might think that it's important to talk about the fact that when Jews talk about prejudice against Jews, people roll their eyes and say, well, of course you guys are worried about that. You're Jews, right? But when Muslims whine and cry about Islamophobia, everybody's like, oh, you poor people. Everyone's so mean to you. And the thing is, I'm not Islamophobic. I'm not sitting here telling you that Islam is evil. But you know what? Some of the people that follow it definitely are. And some of the people that want to talk about how, we should be stabbing people that say things we disagree with. Well, guess what? In Canada, that's not okay. In Canada, you're allowed to disagree. Ron and I have had disagreements on the show.
Yeah.
Rhonda hasn't told people I'm going to stab Ryan Belrose. I don't tell people I'm going to stab Ron East. Like, once in a while we disagree about stuff. And then usually we say, okay, well, if we can't come to an agreement, okay, well, we agree on the important stuff. That's fine. So
Yeah, and
There are
that's the
BDS
problem.
groups right now that are praising the attack on Psalm.
Yeah.
oh, Mayor's cut off there. I think Mayor
Froze up.
oh,
Yeah.
froze up. Mayor froze
I
up.
know what,
But
I know what he's saying.
I
They're
agree.
praising it.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Ryan. It's the point here is that we need to speak out. Need to speak out as much and as often as we can. And unfortunately, it is the same thing that's happening again and again. But we got to remind our community again and again that it's important to stay awake and stay alert to what's happening and educate yourself about what's happening. I do this all the time with
Pay
my kids here at home. Pay attention to what's happening around you, because one day you're going to wake up to a whole different community and society that you're used to, and it's going to happen gradually and slowly. I was telling my kids, in 50 years, there will be streets in Toronto that you will not want to go into because they're going to try to apply Sharia law there, just like they did in London and elsewhere. And good luck to you trying to go into those streets. But because everybody's not paying attention, because everybody's playing the victim card, because everybody's walking on eggshells because they're afraid they're going to do something that somehow going to cause them to be labeled as a racist, this is allowed to slowly continue. And like you're saying, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually that's where we're going to head to, whether it's Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, I don't care where. That's how it's going to be. They're going to push for Sharia law. That's what they want. That's the agenda. And anybody who said it's different than that is just lying.
Yep. I defy anybody. And I've said this over and over. I defy anybody to find a mainstream pro-Israel activist or Jewish advocate who uses language that's even remotely as inflammatory or as bigoted as these people are using openly on Twitter. They use it openly on Facebook. And yet I get banned for laughing at an If Not Now. I'm permanently banned on Twitter because I made fun of an If Not Now guy because he was upset that somebody said, well, you support a two-state solution, so you're part of the problem. You're just as evil as the other Zionists. And I was like, do you see what I'm saying, bud? Like, they don't like you. You're a Jew. They hate Jews. Like, it doesn't matter how much you hate Israel. If you don't hate Israel enough, they hate you. It's that simple.
And as a Jew, you'll never be able to hate Israel enough in their eyes. And what they're doing is they're using you until they're at such a level of strength and power where they don't need you anymore on their side to help them, push them along like the wind. And then they'll turn on you just as easily as they turn on everybody else. You can already see it in some of the tweets and some of the posts and some of the things you're reading where they're saying, hey, be aware of this, what they call liberal Zionist organizations. They're also against you. And be worried of, all these other pro-Jewish or anti-Israel organizations that are Jewish because they're also at the end of the day against you. So at the end of the day, don't trust any Jew is what they're saying, right? But it's only about Zionism is what they always sort of claim, right? Because it's just an easy way to get around anti-Semitism nowadays. I think we lost Mayor, so I'm not sure how the show is going to end or not end, but I'm giving it to Doctor to decide.
Well,
Doc?
Mayor's power failure seemed to just knock his internet out, so he's trying to root back on. But if not, you guys can kind of tie up loose ends, maybe make a closing comment, and then I'll play Hatikva. But I'm going to give you all, don't cut each other off. I'm going to let Ryan go first. But, one of the questions which kept on being proposed is not that we have control, but as Brigadier General Vivi said, obviously Israel needs to attack first. Other than that, what have we not been doing that we can do as Jews, as non-Jews, as humanists and as Zionists, to try to at least get in the public eye what's going on? Because it seems that nobody knows what we're talking about except us. So Ryan, why don't you make a couple of comments, and then I'll have Ron on. And then if Mayor's not back, I'll close it out.
Sure.
So
I
Ryan,
think, look, I've been saying this for a while now, right? The biggest problem is that too many Jews are very insular. Like, they have their little circle of friends, and that's really the only people that they're around. I think that one thing that the progressive Jews have done very well is they've inserted themselves into social justice movements all over the place, right? And because of their ability to just show up and portray themselves as just there to help, what happens is people take them seriously because they show up to these events. They're showing up. They're there. They're present. I've always said that the main reason that I'm like as pro-Israel and pro-Jewish as I am isn't because it's not just because I'm educated and I pay attention and I know the facts. The reason I got so involved is because I actually give a shit. Like, I have enough Jews that I care about that this matters to me. So it's not just like, so when someone says you don't have any skin in the game, I kind of get a little bit pissed off because I'm like, I have friends that are just as close as family to me. Yes, that's skin in the game. So when people are talking about killing Jews or talking about harming Israelis, I have a lot of friends in Israel. I have a lot of people that I genuinely care about. So yeah, that to me is skin in the game. You need to make that. You need to build these relationships. You need to, if you're on Facebook, and look, I don't think and Ron knows this. I don't like Facebook activists, right? The Facebook activists, the Slacktivists, the ones that think, "Oh, I just posted something on Facebook. I'm done." No. But by posting about stuff like this, post about the fact that those missiles fell short and killed kids, but don't just post it on your personal Facebook. Maybe if you're in a group somewhere that talks about politics, post it in there. You know what? You're probably going to take a lot of flack. That's the way it works. I hate to break it to you, but being pro-Israel is not always really popular with a lot of these progressives and lefties. I mean, it's pretty popular on the conservative side of things, but even on the conservative side of things, you have people that don't really know anything about this stuff. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. You got to build the relationships. The other thing is build a reputation as being somebody who actually gives a shit about facts. Don't get a reputation as of somebody that posts memes and shit posts and argues without knowing what you're talking about. There's a lot of people that don't like me on social media. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty popular on social media too. I got a shit ton of followers on pretty much every platform. But there's a lot of people that don't like me. But one thing that even the people that don't like me have to admit is that I generally know what I'm talking about. I don't just spout off about stuff without doing a little bit of research. I don't say things without actually understanding what I'm about to talk about. So when you have the discussion, look, I see that it's not just posting. Yeah, that's good. Have discussions with people, have discussions with people you're, maybe Facebook friends, but work acquaintances, stuff like that. I mean, it's not just about social media. It's about building relationships all over. But like Ron and I have talked about this at length. And one thing Ron and I definitely both agree on is that when you have a conversation with somebody, it comes with a lot more gravitas if you're, if you're already someone that's known to just tell the truth. Look, like I piss people off sometimes because they would rather I tell them sweet lies than sour truths, right? But unfortunately, I'm not built that way. So sometimes I'll tell somebody something and they don't like it, but I don't really care because it's not my job to make people feel good. It's my job to tell people what I really genuinely believe. And I think that that's one thing we will win eventually because we have the truth on our side. Look, I know it's hard, right? Especially right now with all this stuff going on in the world and with, people are telling you not to believe your lying eyes and, like all the crazy nonsense that the left pushes and just kind of just assumes that we're going to take as fact. Things look really dark right now. It does. It doesn't look good. But I genuinely believe that we are, as human beings, we've always muddled through. As Jews, I mean, look at all the people that have tried to kill you guys and tried to fuck you over your entire existence. And where are they? They're in the garbage can of history. You're still here. That's how you have to approach this. You have to realize, look, long term is much different than short term. Maybe short term, the BDS is, encouraging people to talk shit about Jews. It's encouraging anti-Semitism in the schools. But long term, are BDS worse than Haman? Are they worse than the Amalekites? Are they really? Like, yeah, they're scumbags, but I mean, we all know what happens to scumbags that mess with Jews. Eventually they end up in the dustbin, right? So let's just look on the bright side. Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
No, that was excellent. I mean, that was very, very powerful, and I agree with everything that you said. And for me, I always tell my non-Jewish friends that most of the Jewish holidays can be summed up with: they tried to kill us, they couldn't, let's eat. And I think that, the same with the BDS here too. It's going to come and go like all the other attempts throughout history to kill us, and they couldn't, and then we end up celebrating and eating. I would say for the community, see the urgency. That's my message to the community: is see the urgency, because if you can see the urgency, you will act upon it. And it's up to our leadership to ensure that the community itself sees the urgency. And if our leadership itself is incapable or blind to the urgency, then it's up to people like yourself and me and Mayor to ensure that we raise the alarm and that we see the urgency. Because through that seeing that urgency will come that education component, which is so important. You can't have a conversation with somebody if you're not educated on the subject matter. You can't go and talk to somebody about what's happening in the Middle East or in Gaza or in Palestine or Israel or West Bank or whatever they want to call it if you're not, yourself educated about what's going on there. And a lot of time what ends up happening is you get thrown all these, big words out there at you, and you don't have any capability of responding. So you either shut down, or you're not in agreement, or you don't even participate in the conversation. And for many of the Jewish people in our community, that's the problem. Prior to, I would say 40 years ago, 30 years ago, because Israel seemed to be a country that was always on the verge of maybe surviving, maybe not, teaching Zionism, Israel, the love for Israel, the love for your country, the understanding of your heritage, your background was paramount. We were collecting money at schools to send to Israel, whether it was JNF, whether it was other causes. It was so important. But as Israel got stronger, as Israel seemed to be imperishable, it seemed to be a country that's not going to be in crisis. It seems like the Jewish community forgot that urgency that needs to maintain and stay there, and said, well, now we can back off a bit. Now we can do other things. Now we can assimilate, if you want to call it that. Less Jewish education for our students, less Jewish education, for children, and in the summer camps, less of all that Judaica that is so important to give you that sense of who you are as a Jew, to give you that foundation. And if you don't build that foundation when the kids are young, you lose them. And then you lose them because you yourself as a parent is uneducated. You can't have that conversation at home with your kids about what's happening. You can't educate them. You can't give them that passion. You can't show them that sense of urgency. What do you expect your children to do? How do you expect them to act? So that's what we need to do. We need to see the urgency. And I think if we see the urgency, then like Ryan said, everything else will fall into place. And I'm not worried about our survival. That's not the worry here, not for Israel, not for the Jewish community outside of Israel. It's the pain that we need to endure again as a Jewish people for the simple fact of trying to exist as Jews. And that's what I'm trying to combat every day, and try to lessen as much as I can, and ensure that my community is aware of it, so that my community can take actions to lessen that pain that our community is feeling and will continue to feel in the years to come because of the unfortunate, and I always call it's the population demographics that are happening here, and we need to be aware of it, because those changes are going to impact us on our day-to-day. That's my message to everybody.
Awesome.
Well, guys, I think it was a good show. Our host, Mayor, has been involved in the power failure, so I'm going to play Hadik for everybody. Please do, if you're watching this, share it.
Hey, by the way, if Toronto needs a little bit of extra power energy, I hear Israel's got some natural gas it's willing to...
I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's willing to send out there. So.
Yeah.
I do think the closing comment I said earlier is I do think that it's become, it's gone from kind of hidden away talking about killing Jews. First it was BDS in Israel, then it was BDS and Zionists, then it was BDS and Jews in every city. And now they don't hide it anymore. We love our martyrs. We love the people who kill Jews, let's take over Jews. I mean, it's, in the past decade, in my opinion, it seems to, not the situation has gotten worse, but the public's acceptance of the situation has become, just a bunch of Jews bitching and moaning again. So on that note, guys, I'm going to play Hatikva, and thanks for being with us, and I'll see you all again very soon.
Very good.
All right, Doc. Have a good one.
You too.
Shalom Aleichem.